Good evening, everybody. Welcome to St Andrews, which is behind me. This will be a League One football ground next season. Birmingham City's win here wasn't enough. Results elsewhere didn't go their way. They have been relegated from the Championship. For Norwich City, despite defeats, they have secured their top six finish. They finished sixth after 46 games. They've taken the scenic route, I'm sure we can all agree, but that has set them up for a playoff semi-final against Leeds United and against Daniel Farke, no less. And we'll come to that in just a moment or so. This was a really flat performance from Norwich today. They were really off it. I think Bristol City minus a couple of notches, and you get pretty close to this performance. It's as bad as they've played for a while, if I'm completely honest with you, just flat all over the pitch. I thought it was interesting if we kind of start with the team news. Christian Fasnacht on the right, slight groin issue. David Wagner, I'm willing to, obviously with the circumstances, and was to come ahead, take a risk with him. John Rowe, who was deemed not fit enough to start the game, so that meant Gabriel Sara being pushed back out to the right, Marcelino Nunez being pushed into the number 10, and Jakob Sørensen playing alongside Kenny McLean. And actually what that change did really was stifled Norwich City in terms of their possession and their build-up, particularly in deep areas. They were really struggling to progress the ball up the pitch. And because Sørensen's got a very different skill set, he's more defensively minded, he's probably doesn't have the technical proficiency of Nunez, who's been in such a good rhythm alongside Kenny McLean. And I just felt their quality in possession was lacking, but also the ability to then play through at points was lacking as well. Kenny McLean's radar was off, and it's not a concern, but it's probably 3 games in a row now where Kenny McLean is really underwhelmed, actually, which is unlike him. So it's not the best time of the season to be having that little dip, but hopefully he's got it out of his system now here today. And Jakob Sørensen as well. And what that meant was when Birmingham pressed, they were forced into longer balls, which were just getting overhit and were just getting overplayed, and quite often going out to touch. Or they were being dispossessed, they were getting caught and they were sloppy. And that probably allowed Birmingham to build up momentum and rhythm. They had quite a few more turnovers against Norwich than I think we've seen in a little while, actually. They've been a little bit better at controlling those. And they utilised really, and I think you could see the plan of action was to try and get in behind Jack Stacey, get Keshi Anderson in behind to try and get crosses into the box. And they did that, and they had joy with that throughout, I felt. So, yeah, just what pushing Nunez up did really was created a real sense of just disjointed Norwich City, but equally you didn't really get him in the game, even though he had Norwich City's only 2 shots on target. From a creative perspective, they were just so limited, and that's partly because of how Birmingham defended, but it's mostly because of the way that they played. They just were not at it, and barring maybe Angus Gunn, who made a flurry of good saves as he does, and Shane Duffy, who I thought made some good blocks, but again in possession there were some issues. I just thought it was a very, very flat, poor afternoon at the office. They were probably fortunate not to be behind in the first half, Birmingham, and you sensed it in this ground. You sensed it as soon as you drove into Birmingham. Really, there was a nervousness, excitement, a trepidation, as there always is when you have something to play for massively on the final day. And they had everything to play for, didn't they, really? And, you've got fireworks, you've got an owner going around the pitch shaking hands with basically every fan in the stadium. There was a real intensity, and you felt that coming out. And Norwich just didn't ever really sort of up their levels to meet it. And whether that's because their minds were elsewhere, and to be honest, they played like a team whose minds were elsewhere. And, ultimately they haven't got beat to the levels that they would have needed to have got beat to have knocked out of it. But it's probably not the performance that you'd want going into the playoffs. So I personally, if you want my view, I personally think momentum is slightly overplayed in terms of the playoffs. I don't think it plays as big a part as people suggest, because no team that has finished 6th has gone up to the Premier League since Ian Holloway's Blackpool in 2010, I think it was. Teams who finish 3rd have the best win rate out of any of the teams. So how much any of these kind of narratives that people try and construct mean, I don't know. I think often you find that the best team who turns up at the right moment wins. And so, look, this was, football is so often about tomorrow, and I think we probably saw that today, actually. It was a lot of Norwich City's performance was about tomorrow. It was not slick, not at it, and everyone agrees, and David Wagner agrees, that they're going to have to be much closer to the levels they saw against Ipswich and the levels that they saw against Hull and Coventry in those wins earlier on the season, in those big game occasions, West Brom as well. They're going to need to be a lot closer to those levels than the ones they're at today, because if they take this performance and replicate it in the playoffs, they get beat convincingly and overwhelmingly over 2 legs, and that's going to be the challenge for them now. The goal comes just after half time again, and to be honest, the tone was set for the second half, where Norwich had the kick-off, rolled the ball back to Kenny McLean, and he struck a pass straight to a Birmingham player, and that kind of set the tone really. And Birmingham were then pushing and pushing and pushing. They got the goal. Anderson's shot. Somehow it's a brilliant bit of skill actually to get his neck. The ball's behind him, to get his neck into a position to meet the header, to then get it down and squeeze it past Angus Gunn. It's a really good finish, and obviously, Bedlam in this place, because at that stage it felt significant, and it was really interesting how it played out, because the game kind of died a death thereafter. Norwich City didn't create anything at that end. Birmingham didn't hugely. They had one Jutkiewicz header that was nodded off target, but beyond that, it was a game that was played in the middle third of the pitch. Norwich were trying to get things going, and immediately after that goal, they corrected the Nunez situation. They put John Rowe on. They played Sainz. Rowe on the right, who David Wagner said he felt only had 45 minutes in him at the moment, which again is a minor concern heading into the playoffs, particularly with Fashnak's groin injury and Ashley Barnes obviously out, and then Sarah behind Sargent. But again, they never really manufactured anything or looked like manufacturing anything. It was just a real off day from everybody. And as I said, they were playing like a team that had their minds elsewhere, and that is probably because they do and they have. And I think because of all of that, there is probably a willingness from David Wagner and from the players and from everybody else probably just to forget this one and push it out of your head because of the circumstances. Birmingham probably, if you want to boil it down to simplistics, I think Birmingham wanted and needed this win more than Norwich City did. And that's probably how it played out. They were just a yard quicker, an inch taller to every ball that they had to win. Of course, ending on a defeat and kind of limping over the line, it's not the way you wanted to do it, particularly when fifth place was on the table. And personally, I don't really feel there's a huge difference in terms of advantage between playing Southampton and Leeds, although I think Norwich would have been better suited as an opponent to play Southampton. So there was perhaps that argument. But look, they're in, and given what they faced this season, David Wagner mapped it out, the situation that they're in the autumn, the turnaround since, I think it's 56 points in 32 games. It's a remarkable points low. It's only 4 teams have achieved higher than that since that 3-1 defeat to Blackburn at Carrow Road in November that left them 17th on the table and David Wagner on the brink, let's be honest. So it's remarkable from that position. And so I can understand why today has happened. As I said, Birmingham needed the win. Norwich didn't really. They just needed to make sure that an 8-goal swing didn't happen. It was never going to happen. I didn't believe that. But it's now teed them up for a playoff semi-final against Leeds, which is going to be incredibly difficult. I think it's probably the opponent that, as I said, even though I don't think it made a huge amount of difference, because actually you look at Southampton and they've sort of bettered the out and won at Leeds there, which is an impressive result. But they've kind of bettered the points average for fourth place and for third place. They have they've done remarkably well this season under Russell Martin. And Leeds United, who have finished with 90 points and not got up, that is pretty unprecedented in terms of the Championship in this league. They've finished 17 points ahead of Norwich. That is the quality gap that they need to build and bridge. And it's going to be immensely difficult. And look, those who are of history know that Norwich City in those 2015 playoffs against Middlesbrough failed to beat them at either point in the regular season. But for me, particularly that Ellen Road game, Norwich were just not quite up to the level and the standard. But it's playoffs, the occasion, it's different. It is different. And actually in many ways, and I've said this to the guys actually as we were travelling up, I think I'm more concerned about Norwich City over 2 legs than I would be in a one-off shootout, to be honest, because you look at the quality they have on the pitch. Not that you'd see it today really, but John Rowe, Gabriel Sarah, Josh Sargent, Marcelino Nunez as well from set piece, from dead ball deliveries, but corners as well. They've really improved. I think they've got enough quality there to win one-off games. What you tend to find in semi-finals is the better team wins, but Norwich City have to believe that they can do that, and they head into this as underdogs without a shadow of a doubt. And I think given the role that David Wagner played in the success he had at Huddersfield, coupled with what this group of players has had to deal with this season, I don't think that's a tag that they'll mind, because they've been written off, they've been criticised, they've been kind of beaten with every stick there is to beat them with, really, and they've managed to get here. So they will be hoping to take all of those skills that they've acquired and built, and that togetherness that they've built as a group, and actually that tough spell in the autumn, that tough spell in 2-month spell where they, 7 defeats in 9. I think you find out pretty quickly whether that tears you apart as a team or pulls you closer. And I think what you've seen with this group, and that's been backed up not by today, part of today, it's finished, it's done, whatever, but over the last few, basically since the turn of the year, I think you've seen that the ability that they've had to be faultless, and they have been by and large. Obviously now they've got to play a team that they haven't beaten, and it's worth adding as well, they've only beaten one one team once inside the top 6, and that was West Brom at Carrow Road. And that first leg at Carrow Road is going to be monumentally important. It's so huge, and it's going to be up to everybody to create an atmosphere, and that's on the club and on the players as well to try and do that, to allow Norwich City to thrive and allow that bridge that I spoke about, that 17-point bridge. Leeds have got the Championship Player of the Season. Ruter is a fantastic player. We could list them all really, and to try and bridge it, because that Carrow Road game is going to be so important. Elland Road in the second leg, if you're behind, feels difficult. So Norwich City have to make sure that they are. And look, I think as a season, it's been, and I can say end of the regular season, obviously we've got games to come and verdicts to come as well. But, this has been, so this is I'm trying to calculate, this is my fifth season, I think. Premier League under Daniel Farke, Championship title win, relegation. My fifth season covering Norwich City in this role. This has been by far the most absurd, to be completely honest with you, because, I've had thoughts at different points, which then 3 weeks later have been completely contradicted by events on the pitch. And, it's been a really strange season. But the last 6 months and what they've created, 4 or 5 months really since the turn of the year has been epic, and it's been a joy to be a part of. Today, not so much, and it was difficult. And those 2.2k fans who came from Norfolk and elsewhere would have been really disappointed. But the reality is, you go and beat Leeds in the first leg of a playoff semi-final, and nobody remembers this day at St Andrews. So yeah, it's all there to play for, and we're obviously going to speak about this game a lot and have a lot of build-up and hear from a lot of people. But it was always going to be a playoff semi-final dripping with narrative, wasn't it? Because it was either going to be Ipswich Town, who obviously secured promotion back to the Premier League, and congratulations to them. I know that there's a rivalry and whatnot, but considering what they've been up against this year, and I know before people shout, I know they've obviously spent money and whatnot, but in relative terms, they're up against teams with parachute payments. To go and achieve automatic promotion is a fantastic achievement, I think, and a great story. And look, good luck to them in the Premier League. But it was either going to be them, and obviously everything that comes with that. It was going to be Southampton and a former playoff winner in Russell Martin at Norwich City, who played over 300 games and, as a player was a club legend. Or it was going to be two-time Championship title winner Daniel Farke. So, it is Farke. That's the way it's going to be, and he is going to be absolutely desperate to beat Norwich City over 2 legs, as Norwich will be to get one over him as well. The last thing I wanted to mention, actually, David Wagner's press conference today, very, very, very interesting, and it'll be on our channels at some point later this afternoon to watch. I would recommend everyone watches it, because particularly the latter end of it, when he speaks about some of the decisions that he tried to make and the areas that he sought to improve. I mean, it's safe to say he feels vindicated, I think, for a lot of the decisions that he's made despite criticism, and he explained why maybe the criticism has been so rife. And I think it's a really interesting kind of pull behind the curtain. There was a lot of praise for Stuart Webber. I don't think Ben Napper got a mention, so make of that what you will. But there was a lot of praise for Stuart Webber in terms of how he's backed him, in terms of how he supported the decisions that he's made, in terms of bringing in more experienced players who are probably more powerful and whatnot, and how a top 6 finish, given everything that happened last year, finishing 13th and everything around that, he called an absolute. I'll just try and find the quote, but it was an absolutely extraordinary achievement, I think, is the way that he summarised it. Obviously, with the adversity that they've had to face this season, so I think that's well worth a watch. But yeah, this has been just an absolutely bonkers season for Norwich City, and we're not done yet. And lots of people speak about marathons when it comes to 46 games Championship seasons. Definitely felt like that this year. But you step out of a marathon and then you go into a 100-metre sprint to try and get to the Premier League, and park all of the noise, park everything that's happened, because Norwich City are in the hat. They've got a ticket, and they've got a date with destiny now with Leeds United, and it's going to be so intriguing to see how it unfolds. So yeah, defeat here in the Midlands at Birmingham. Obviously, best wishes to them after relegation to League One. It's obviously Norwich fans have been there. It's a horrible experience, but I said this today actually. I've been to St Andrews a few times covering Norwich City. This is by far the best that I've seen it in terms of condition and state, and obviously it was full today, and I think that shows the potential that this football club has. So obviously, and obviously Tony Mowbray as well. We wish him well in his recovery. So there we go. It's a 6th place finish for Norwich City after 46 games. It's been a remarkable season, topsy-turvy, ups and downs, but they have a shot at Premier League promotion. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you across the week with plenty of content, I'm sure. And most crucially, we'll see you at Carrow Road next Sunday for the playoff semi-final first leg against Leeds United.